Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the lecture. Welcome to the lecture in the series of molecular biology. Today, we'll be talking about a very beautiful topic under the heading of operon, that is tryptophan operon. And in this lecture, we'll be trying to deliberate. We'll try to understand each and every aspect of the tryptophan operon, how the tryptophan synthesis is actually happening inside the prokaryotic cell, how the complete regulation is going about, and how these particular operons, whether we are talking about tryptophan operon or what we had discussed in the previous lecture, that is about the lac operon. So we'll discuss how the complete regulation part is happening. So by the end of the lecture, I hope that we will be able to understand the complete aspects of tryptophan operon, as well as we will extend that study to another operon that is of importance, that is your ribinose operon. So let's start directly without wasting any much of the time. What is tryptophan operon? See, in the previous lecture we had established the concept of operon, that the operons is a cluster of gene. Now those cluster of genes without any intronic region in the prokaryote are called as polycistronic region, and that polycistronic region will be responsible for the expression to form mRNA, and from that mRNA single individual proteins are being synthesized, provided the condition was that all the genes that are clubbed together should correspond to a single metabolic pathway. So earlier we had discussed about the lactose metabolic pathway. Today we are starting with the tryptophan biosynthesis pathway. So all the genes that will be studying or the cluster or are clustered in a polycistronic way will be responsible for the synthesis of tryptophan, and that will be our job to understand that how that particular operon is working, how it is sensing the tryptophan concentration. See, in this case, when we are talking about synthesis, we are not talking about metabolism or breaking down of anything. We are talking about the synthesis part. So when in the media the tryptophan concentration is low, when tryptophan concentration is going down, then the synthesis will start. So it is opposite to what we had studied. When the concentration is going down, then the biosynthesis pathway start. At that time, tryptophan operon will be switched on, and when the concentration resumes back to the level, now this particular operon will be switched off. So this is how the synthesis operon works. So when we are talking about the tryptophan operon, of course we are talking about we are talking about the classical model that we had used to discuss the operon system, and that is E. coli. Now, in this E. coli, tryptophan, as in the earlier case of lac operon, the regulator of this tryptophan operon is again a gene which is coding for a repressor. We called it as tryptophan repressor. Now, this tryptophan repressor will go and bind to the operator region, thereby blocking the RNA polymerase site, and will cause the switching off of the expression of the downstream genes. Apart from this classical repressor mediated suppression of operon, there is another mechanism which is unique to this particular tryptophan operon, and perhaps one should be able to have a very clear understanding of that. That is called as attenuation. Now attenuation is another segment or a portion of a leader sequence that is present in the same operon, and it results in the formation of loops or secondary structure due to complementary in the domains, and that particular pairing dictates whether the gene operons will be on or off, and how it happens, that we'll study in this particular lecture. So when we are saying that tryptophan operon is expressing, that means we are saying that tryptophan is on. Now look at this particular pictorial representation. This is actually the complete tryptophan operon. So when we are talking about the operon, we are dividing it always into two main parts: the structural genes, which are actually the protein coding genes, complete protein coding genes, and then we are talking about what? Then we are talking about the regulatory proteins or the regulatory genes, right? So see, structurally, if we talk about this, there are 5 different structural genes that are present in tryptophan operon, and these 5 genes will give rise to 5 different proteins. And those 5 different proteins, enzymes actually, 5 different enzymes are responsible for the synthesis of this particular tryptophan. Apart from the 5 genes, that is E, G, D, C, F, B, A, we call it as EDCBA, EDCBA. There are regulatory regions which contain the promoter and the operator site, which is present here. There is another sequence that is called as TRPL. This is actually the involved in protein synthesis, because this particular region is responsible for sensing the tryptophan tRNA. Then we have an attenuator sequence. Now this particular sequence is responsible for attenuation, and we'll discuss this particular sequence in detail in upcoming slides. But the classical repressor mediated regulation of operon is mediated at the end of promoter and 3 operators that are present in the regulatory region. So this is how the complete sequence is going about. And if we see that how this particular tryptophan operon is functioning, then this is perhaps the simplest form of representation that can be given. We have a promoter site, and with the promoter there are operators which overlaps with the promoter region. The key word is overlapping with the promoter region. So to this particular promoter, under normal circumstances, the RNA polymerase will bind. And by normal circumstances, I mean when the tryptophan concentration is low and the operon is on. In that condition, the promoter is freely available to the RNA polymerase. The RNA polymerase will bind to the promoter region and will carry out the expression of these genes. Now, as in the last lecture, we established an understanding that each of the gene contains a sequence of ribosome binding. So when the mRNA is formed, when the polycistronic mRNA is formed, then tryptophan E, for an example, the E gene will be having its own ribosome binding site, the D will be having its own ribosome binding site, and that is the reason why you are getting individual proteins and there is no formation of polypeptide chain. That is the reason why you are getting individual proteins. Then there are expression of the proteins which are responsible for synthesis of tryptophan, and these proteins are nothing but the enzymes that are actually involved in this process of biosynthesis, of protein, of this particular amino acid, that is tryptophan. So this is how the complete part is going about. Then what is the function of these genes, or what actually the enzymes are there that are being coded by this? See, we already know the promoter and the operator is there. There is TRPL that we understood, that's a leader sequence which is also containing an attenuator at that particular time, which is responsible for the attenuation. We are more interested right now to understand what is EDCBA. What is EDCBA and what it is coding for? See, tryptophan TRPE gene. The TRPE gene is coding for an enzyme called as anthranilate synthetase, subunit 1. It contains a single subunit. Then the second subunit of the same enzyme is coded by tryptophan D. The TRPC is another very important enzyme, that is glycerol phosphate synthetase. And then we have B and A. Now these B and A are very important enzymes. The B is the first subunit of tryptophan synthetase, whereas the TRPA is the second subunit of the tryptophan synthetase. So you see, these are the enzyme part. Mainly, the 5 genes are cumulatively forming the different peptides which are performing different functions. Now, how this particular synthesis is happening, that is the main part. How this synthesis is going about. If we talk about complete open process, then let us see the first of all, let us see the flow chart. And for your convenience, let me shift it here. Yeah, let us see the flow chart. So the substrate that is being utilized is corsemic acid that is being utilized. It is acted upon by anthranilate synthetase. Now what is anthranilate synthetase? Now this anthranilate synthetase is again an enzyme which is coded by the operon, and it is coded by the operon E. Now when we say ED, then I showed you that initially there is GD and we also have FC. So the region which codes for this particular anthranilate synthetase is actually the main potent enzyme in gene is TRPE. It carries out the synthesis of anthranilate, or we can call it as anthranylic acid from corsemic acid. Then this particular anthranylic acid is converted into This particular phosphoribosyl anthranilate by the help of an enzyme called as phosphoribulate anthranilate isomerase, which is coded by TRPA, which is coded by coded by TRPD, the anthranilate phosphoribosyl transferase. So the anthranilate will be acted upon by this enzyme, and this enzyme will transfer a phosphoribosyl group. So that is why we are calling it as anthranilate phosphoribosyl transferase enzyme. Now the substrate which is formed, is called as phosphoribosyl anthranilate acid. This particular phosphoribosyl anthranilic acid this particular phosphoribosyl anthranilic acid is actually will be acted upon by an enzyme called as isomerase, which is coded by TRPF. This will give rise to CDRP. CDRP is nothing but carboxyphenylamine deoxyribulose phosphate, and this particular substrate will be again acted by the sequence of enzymes called as indole glycerol phosphate synthetase, as well as tryptophan synthase. Then after the main enzyme actually which is responsible, or the last enzyme which is responsible for tryptophan synthesis is actually tryptophan synthase. Now this particular will result in the formation of L-tryptophan. So L-tryptophan, or the tryptophan amino acid, is synthesized from an immediate precursor, that is indole 3 glycerol phosphate. And this is how the biosynthesis is happening inside a prokaryote. See, like we are already studying the glucolicases and the Krebs cycle, the sequence of pathways are always there, and there are amino acids which are synthesized directly from that amphibolic pathway, and there are certain amino acids which are synthesized from different pathways using different substrates, and this tryptophan is one of the example of those amino acids. So the substrate, or the basic substrate that is being used, is corsemic acid, and the immediate precursor of tryptophan is nothing but indole 3 glycerol phosphate. And the complete proteins that are involved, you see here the number of proteins that are involved, or the enzymes which are involved, are actually five enzymes are involved, and there are 5 genes that are being coding. But if you see in the previous slide, I told you that this particular sequence is coding for subunit 1 and subunit 2. Then what is subunit 1 and subunit 2? See, TRPE is coding for anthranilate synthetase unit 1, subunit 1. Then we have the second gene, which is a accumulation of G and D. It contains a small portion of subunit 2 as well as the TRPD gene. The TRPD gene is actually responsible for the synthesis of an individual enzyme called as anthranilate phosphoribosyl transferase. And similar is the case with TRPC gene. Now this TRPC has a region of F also. So this particular gene is responsible for synthesizing 2 different enzymes called as phosphoribosyl anthranilate isomerase and the indole glycerol phosphate synthase. So all the enzymes that are actually required for this particular tryptophan synthesis are coming from this particular tryptophan operon. Now, how this particular operon is repressing, or the repressor is mediating the regulation in what manner? See, there is another regulatory gene which is present upstream as a trans element to this particular promoter, that is called as TRPR. R means repressor. Or you can call it as the regulator also. The TRPR is a regulatory gene. This gene will be expressed and mRNA will be formed, and thereby producing a protein which is called as repressor protein. But currently this will be under inactive state. It will be called as an inactive repressor. It will be converted into activated form. Who will be able to convert this particular repressor into activated form? See, you have to understand what this is: a synthesis operon. So in synthesis operon, when the tryptophan concentration is okay, it's to an optimum level, then there is essential requirement that no more further synthesis of tryptophan should happen. In that particular case, this protein should be converted into active state, thereby inhibiting the binding of promoter. But when the concentration is reduced, then it should be removed from that particular operator site. That is the nutshell of regulation, right? Then to convert this inactive repressor into active form, there is a requirement of a co-repressor. And what is that co-repressor? It is tryptophan itself. It is tryptophan itself. Now, what is happening when tryptophan concentration is present? When tryptophan concentration is present, that tryptophan will go and bind to this particular repressor. Then there will be a complex of the repressor with tryptophan. And then this particular repressor is converted from inactive to active state. And now the complex will be going and binding to the operator region. And since there is an overlap, then RNA polymerase will not be able to bind to the promoter and there will be no transcription. There will be no transcription, but that always happens when we are talking about a high tryptophan concentration. When we are talking about the low tryptophan concentration, then this particular repressor is not able to bind to the operator, and thereby it is now converted into an inactive form. Thereby it is now converting into inactive form. Why? Because if tryptophan is low, then there is no tryptophan to bind to the repressor. If there is no tryptophan to bind to the repressor, the repressor cannot go and bind to the operator, and thereby the low tryptophan will switch on the operon and will cause the synthesis of tryptophan. That is what your co-repressor is all about. That is what your co-repressor is all about, and that is what I have showcased here. See, the protein which was formed, the co-repressor which was formed, is currently inactive. Then when there is high tryptophan, the tryptophan will come and bind to this particular protein, converting it into an active repressor, and this active repressor can go and bind to the operator, thereby shutting the tryptophan operon. Whereas when the tryptophan is going low, this particular repressor will not be able to find any tryptophan molecule, and thereby it will detach from the operator region, will not be able to bind to the operator region, and then it will cause switching on of the tryptophan operon. And this is how the complete regulation is going about. So when we are talking about the regulation of tryptophan operon, we had already discussed how the repressor protein binding is there to the operator, how it is mediating. That is, of course, the one of the mode of regulation. Then we have another regulation which is mediated by attenuation. What is attenuation? We call it as translation-induced transcriptional attenuation. Translation-induced transcriptional attenuation. Now, to understand that particular aspect, one first has to be very clear in mind that what is repression. How we are talking about the repression. So, if tryptophan is absent, cell needs tryptophan, the operon will be on. If tryptophan is present, cell does not require any kind of tryptophan, it will be switched off. And the responsibility of this regulator is again a repressor protein along with a co-repressor. That's what we had established. Then we are discussing right now about a secondary switch that we are calling as attenuation. See, apart from this repressor, there is another mechanism in terms of attenuation which is actually responsible for reducing the expression of the tryptophan operon whenever the tryptophan is at higher concentration. Now, how it performs? It will block the synthesis of transcription, not the synthesis of mRNA. It actually inhibits the initiation itself. Now, and this particular attenuation will completely prevent the transcription process. It will not allow a single mRNA to be formed. So how it is happening? See, the transcriptional attenuation, what we are talking about, how it is happening. The attenuator region, what we discussed in the genome, contains, this particular region is called as leader region, what we had discussed in the previous slides, contains 4 different domains, and the 4 different domains are called based on the number 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, try to understand, please. Ribosome has come and bind, RNA polymerase has come and bind to the promoter. And it is start scanning the tryptophan leader region, and then it will reach the first gene. So, when it is at the domain 1, the domain 1 along with the RNA polymerase catalyzes a very slow translation. There is very slow translation. The ribosomes which are binding to the 5' end will go and will cross this particular leader region. Then only they will reach to to the polycistronic mRNA in order to form different proteins, right? So when the ribosomes are interacting with domain 1, this is the mRNA part, and when the ribosome is interacting with domain 1, this that interaction or that translation is very slow, very slow. That results in pairing up of 2 and 3 region. Because it is slow and there is complementary between 2 and 3, this 2 and 3 region will pair up. And if this 2 and 3 region pairs up, then we call that there will be complete transcription, there will be full gene transcription, there will be full gene transcription. Now please understand what I narrated. In prokaryotes, transcription and translation is happening simultaneously. Transcription and translation is happening simultaneously. So that means from the gene, as soon as the mRNA starts coming out, the ribosomes are going and binding. The ribosomes are going and binding. So when the domain 1 came out, the ribosome went and bind, and that particular translation went slow. That resulted in the pairing up of domain 2 and 3, and that is the indication, that is the regulation, that if the domain 2 and 3 are pairing, then there will be complete transcription. But when the tryptophan levels are very high, then the ribosome goes for fast translation. The ribosome goes for fastidious translation at domain 1, and it crosses the domain 1 and reaches the domain 2 immediately when it is synthesized. So the domain 2 is now blocked by the ribosome. This results in the pairing of 3 and 4 domain. And this is called as termination pairing. So when this particular pairs, only 10% of the normal mRNA will be produced, and that is how the high tryptophan levels are ensuring that there is a reduction in the operon expression. And that's what we have shown here, that the attenuation, how it is going about. See, there is an mRNA. This is mRNA, right? And this is DNA. Now, as soon as the mRNA is released, the ribosome starts binding. So the transcription and translation both are happening, right? So what is the concept? There are 4 domains in the attenuator. As soon as the first domain comes out, the ribosomes attaches to the first domain at the leader region and starts translation, forming a leader peptide. Now when the tryptophan is at low concentration, this particular translation is a slow process. Under that condition, this will allow the remaining 2 and 3 domain to form a loop structure called as hairpin loop structure. Now this hairpin loop which is created will prevent the formation of 3 and 4. Why? Because both of them are engaged right now. So there is no another loop which is formed, and this particular signal will be recognized by RNA polymerase. Now the RNA polymerase can easily move on to transcribe the entire operon. But when the tryptophan levels are high, right, what it does, the ribosome will be moving fast. And thereby it reaches to the domain 2 and occupies the domain 2. This results in the formation of a hair loop between 3 and 4. Now the formation of this loop dislodges the RNA polymerase from the open complex. Thereby ensuring that the complete transcription should not happen, and it terminates the transcription. So that is the reason that we call the pairing of 3 and 4 as termination hairpin, whereas the pairing of 2, 3 as anti-termination or the promoter hairpin or the promoting hairpin. So that is the concept of anti-termination and termination hairpin in case of tryptophan operon. So that was all about tryptophan operon. Now let us talk about another operon, and that is very important, called as arabinose operon. Now, what is ribinose first of all? See, it's again a sugar source. It's a carbohydrate source which is not associated with directly converted into glucose. The glucose is not a monomer of arabinose, of course. So, for utilizing when the glucose levels are down and and the cell needs energy. So, for utilizing other available carbohydrate sources, there is a set of gene cluster called as clubbed together to form an arabinose operon. Now it contains different genes. It contains the genes which are responsible for transferring arabinose into the cell. It also contains the genes which are actually required to convert arabinose into xylulose, which can be taken up after getting phosphorylated. It can be taken up by pentose phosphate pathway. And there are another set of enzymes that are present in this prokaryotic genome, which can use that cellulose that is formed from this particular arabinose operon. They can utilize that cellulose and can direct it towards glycolytic pathway. Of course, that's a separate channel of enzymes and separate operon. But currently, we'll be talking about the arabinose operon, which is responsible for converting arabinose into xylulose. Arabinose into xylulose, and this is how it looks. This is how it looks, the ARA operon, or we call it as Arab operon, or also it is called as bad operon. Bad operon is not because it is bad, it's because of the gene sequence that is present. It contains 3 structural genes which are coding for 3 enzymes and coded by ARA. ARA means arabinose B, A, D. That's why we call it as bad. Or perhaps that's the way I ask my students to remember it also. So when we are talking about B, A and D, what B does? B is coding for ribokinase. A is the one which will first act on A is the one which is first acting on arabinose sugar. It will convert the arabinose into ribulose. It is an isomerase, arabinose isomerase. And then B will come. It will cause, it's a ribulose kinase. Kinase means phosphate group. It will phosphorylation. It will add the phosphate group on that sugar, converting it into ribulose phosphate. And then that particular ribulose phosphate will be acted upon by another enzyme that is coded by D, and this enzyme is an epimerase enzyme which will cause the epimerization of ribulose phosphate, converting it into ribulose 5-phosphate, converting the ribulose 5-phosphate into xylulose 5-phosphate. That is how the epimerization is happening. So when we are talking about the complete regulatory part, the structural part, one should always be aware of the regulatory part. Now you see, for the 3 genes, there are multiple regulatory regions that has been identified in case of arabinose operon. And the main regulator that is being highlighted is ARA-C, C gene protein. This is called as regulator protein. Now there are 4 important sites on which this particular ARA-C protein can act and can regulate the arabinose operon. 2 are operator 1 and operator 2. The operator 1 again is a site where this particular protein of ARA-C can go and bind and can repress the transcription of promoter. Now, the unique part of arabinose operon. There is a promoter PC which is responsible for the expression of this particular ARA-C protein. So it's a kind of an example where a gene is producing a protein, and that protein produced is going for a feedback loop and inhibiting its own expression. And that is the job of operator 1. The protein, ARA-C protein, will bind to the operator 1 and thereby inhibits its own expression. And binding to, in the presence of arabinose, this binding of C protein, ARA-C protein, to this operator site further potentiates and helps the activity of this promoter P-BAD to carry out the expression of BAD genes. Not directly, but it potentiates. Then we have operator 2. Now this operator 2 is another operator site for this particular ARA-C. See, the simplest question. This operator is lying here. There is no promoter nearby. Then how come it can regulate the complete operon? Very decent question, very understandably asked question. We'll see how that particular regulation is happening. So you see, it's another operator site where this particular C protein can go and bind, and what it is doing simultaneously when it is binding to operator 2, this protein can go and bind to the inhibitory part, that is ERA I site. Now this binding to ERA I site is the main part of regulation. If this particular protein goes and binds to this particular ERA I site, then it shuts down, switches off the complete operon. Why? Because the promoter accessibility is now denied. So what is ERA I site? See, ERA I stands for inducer, arabinose inducer site. In order to express the downstream genes, this particular ERA I site should be freely available, and then only the promoter can go and bind. So how this particular ERA I regulation is happening? So before going to the regulation, how this regulation is happening, there is another segment, that is CRP, that we had discussed in lac operon also, called as catabolite repressor protein. We'll come to that in a bit. Now, suppose a condition is there where there is no arabinose. There is no arabinose. If there is no arabinose, then the operon should be shut down. If there is no arabinose, then the operon should shut down. Then how it is doing? See, let me go back to the slide. We have an operator 2 here and ERA I here. The C protein will simultaneously bind to operator 2 and ERA 1. And how it binds? It binds in such a way that both the proteins dimerizes, both the proteins binds, and it loops the operon, regulatory portion of this particular operon. The operator 2, which was present here. Now, since there is a binding of ERA C, and it also binds to its own unit, which is binding simultaneously to ERA 1, the complete regulatory part is now looped out. And this is happening only and only in the case when there is no arabinose. Now, since it has looped out, then this promoter is now inaccessible for the RNA polymerase. RNA polymerase cannot go and bind to the promoter and carry out the expression of the downstream genes. So this particular dimer of the ERA C protein is causing the DNA to loop. And anyhow, when we are talking about this promoter, it's a weak promoter like lac operon. It's a very weak promoter. So its activity will be shut down. And what is happening? The another part what we discussed, that this particular ERA C protein, after simultaneously when it is regulating the expression of tryptophan operon, it is also inhibiting its own expression. So that is how, under very low concentration or absence of arabinose, the complete tryptophan operon is shut down. Now suppose if the concentration of this particular C protein falls to very low level, because it is inhibiting its own expression, it falls to very low level, then what will be happening? Then again the transcription of this particular ERA C resumes until the concentration of C protein is sufficient enough to again switch off this particular arabinose operon. So what is happening? See, the dimer of this particular ERA C protein is actually binding to the operator, thereby it completely inhibits the access of this particular RNA polymerase to the promoter. But when arabinose is present, what is happening? When arabinose is present, then this particular operon needs to be switched on. Then how it does? The presence of arabinose, the arabinose will come and bind to the ERA C protein. It will come and bind to the ERA C protein at allosteric site, like what we discussed in case of the inducer allolactose. It will come, the arabinose will come and bind on an allosteric site, thereby changing the conformation of this particular ERA C protein. Now the duplex of this, or the complex of ERA C protein and the arabinose will now be activated, and then it will preferentially be binding only and only to ERA I and not to operator 2. See what is happening here. Let me just go to the back slide. See, in this case, the dimer is able to bind both to operator 2 and ERA 1. When arabinose will be coming, the arabinose will be binding to this dimer, and it will ensure that there is conformational change, and the change will induce the detachment of this particular dimer from operator 2. Thereby the loop will now again be straightened. If the loop is now straightened, then this promoter bed, the promoter of these three genes, is now freely available for RNA polymerase to bind. And if the loop is now detached, it is going again in a linear fashion, then this particular RNA polymerase can now easily go and bind to the promoter BAD and can carry out the transcription. And this is how the positive regulation or induction is happening. Please remember, there is utmost essential that the protein, era-C protein, should remain bound on inducer gene, and then only it can potentiate the binding of RNA polymerase to the promoter region. RNA polymerase to the promoter region, and that is what is happening here. That the arabinose binding to the dimer has changed the conformation, and now there is no loop. Then the last part of this particular operon that we left, that was CRP gene, or we should say CAP gene, like as we had discussed in lac operon also. What is that? The catabolite activator protein. What it does, I told you in the beginning of arabinose operon, when we are talking about any other carbohydrate source, only and only when glucose is depleted or it's absent, then only lactose and arabinose or the other source, and these other carbohydrate sources will be utilized for energy generation or for metabolism. So again, as was in the case of lactoperon, this particular CAP protein, catabolite activator protein, along with cyclic AMP, will be responsible for sensing the glucose levels. If there is high glucose, the prokaryotic cell will like to take that glucose. At that time, the cyclic AMP concentration is very low. If cyclic AMP concentration is very, very low, the CAP protein is free. It will never form complex with cyclic AMP, right? If there is no complex, then there will be no activation of this particular arabinose operon, and the complete arabinose operon will be in switched off condition. But when glucose is depleted, this will be sensed, and then cyclic AMP concentration will be rising. This cyclic AMP will now form a complex with CAP protein, the catabolite activator protein, and this particular catabolite activator protein, or along with cyclic AMP complex, will be responsible for switching on the arabinose operon. And how it does? It helps in opening up the loop. It not initiates, it helps in opening up the loop. How it helps? It binds to the adjacent side. Where the complete dimer of AC protein is binding. The dimer of AC protein is binding to era I, the inducer portion, and it just binds adjacent to the inducer portion. Thereby, it potentiates or it helps in opening up the loop, and thereby it increases the efficiency of transcription. So that is how the complete operon system is getting regulated when we are talking about the arabinose part. And in this particular lecture, we had established that how the tryptophan operon, how the arabinose operon both are being regulated. And I hope that this complete aspect of all the operons will be clear to you. So you should first go through the lecture, and then based on the understanding what we had established in this lecture, you can go on to read further with these links. And see, whenever we culminate a lecture, it's always about the MCQs. So these are certain MCQs which will be helpful for you. I have also given the answers here. It will be helpful for you to understand how these answers are got about, because these are very basic MCQs. We are not gone into a research kind of depth that to generate an analytical overview. So these are very basic things that one should keep in mind after going through the complete lecture. Like if that we are talking about the tryptophan repressor, whether it's a dimer, tetramer, or what. So you should be able to know which is dimer and which is tetramer, whether we are talking about the lac operon in terms, or whether we are talking about in terms of tryptophan operon, or when we are talking about the arabinose operon, then how many genes it contains. Or arabinose is converted to ribulose by what enzyme. So these things one should be able to have a clear-cut understanding after this particular lecture. So students, that is all in today's session. Thank you so much for your patience listening, and I hope the lecture was fruitful. We'll again meet with another lecture in the same series of molecular biology. Till then, stay safe and wish you very happy learning. Thank you so much.